Okay, so I'm here with Mr. Paul Browne. You know him as what the voice of Irish MMA nearly on every show, but we were just going to talk to him about his career to date and how he got into MMA. So thank you very much for your time. And what brought you to MMA and, well, jiu-jitsu more so?
Yeah, it was jiu-jitsu, it wasn't even jiu-jitsu I initially started with. It was kind of kickboxing I did originally when I first kicked off. So I was in like my early 30s and I had been playing Gaelic football for the few years prior to that, and I just sort of knocked that on the head and spent a year twiddling my thumbs and drinking and yeah, not much else really. And I kind of, like, I've always trained, like I work in the fitness industry, so, but I had this sort of urge to be involved in a sport, you know, I missed it. So as part of my job, I ended up doing some strength and conditioning programming for a guy who had his pro MMA debut coming up, and through that I ended up trying a class or two here and there. Long story short, fell into having a couple of kickboxing fights and then a couple of jiu-jitsu matches, and it just sort of it spiraled from there. I found myself sort of gravitating towards Team Rhino while still a reasonable beginner, and I've been at Team Rhino since I was a white belt. So went all the way from white belt to black belt under Andy Ryan, and the journey just in that, whatever it is, I think it's about 12 years or something like that. Just the people I've met, the place I've been, the experiences I've had over that. When you take a minute to stop and look back on it, it's class, you know?
Yeah, I'd say when you look back on that whole time, and what led you towards Rhino? Was there notable fighters in there at the time, or was it just a gym close to you, or was it Andy Ryan himself?
Yeah, so the gym I initially started in was kind of affiliated to Team Rhino. So what we did was we popped up once every couple of weeks to do a jiu-jitsu class up in Rhino with as a group. And I remember just being in there and being mesmerised by like the level of athlete in the place. You had guys like pro fighters up there at the time, like Siri and Paul Redmond were the top of the pile there. But we had plenty of other guys like Chris Bouchard and Konrad Uvanowski and guys like that were all doing well as high-level amateurs or just new pros. And the scene was pretty underground still in Ireland at the time. So this was before the UFC explosion. Conor McGregor hadn't made it onto the worldwide stage at that point. So a lot of these guys were, just breaking into the cage warrior scene at the time. So I remember just being mesmerised and that. And like I said, with the first year or year and a half I was training, I had a couple of kind of low-level kickboxing fights and whatnot, and it was nice to get just the experience of getting in the ring and fighting. But then I remember strapping on the gloves and standing in front of Neil Seery for my first sparring round in Team Rhino. I was like, oh, this is different. This is completely fucking different, you know? So we, I just felt I felt like if I want to actually learn and improve and learn the sport, these are the people I need to be around, you know? The atmosphere back in Rhino in those days, like, we're a crazy bunch even now. Like, we're a bit different to other clubs, but back then it was the fucking Wild West, you know what I mean? It was, I always refer to us as the crazy gang, you know, like the Wimbledon football team used to be known as back in the late 80s. So it was just like that, and it was just something I wanted to be a part of. So I just sort of, I found myself in the door there and never left, and still there to this day, you know, so.
Yeah, and you said you went from a white belt to black belt under Andy Ryan. Talk to us about the stages of that, and like you said, what was about 12, 13-year journey. Like, what drove, because everyone tells me when they go to jiu-jitsu, you're getting smashed for like the first 6 months to a year before you start actually turning around. Like, what kind of a mindset you need to keep going? Because if I was going something for 6 months to a year, and not that you didn't seem to be making progress, but you're getting smashed, a lot of people would easily give up. What made you stick at that and keep going?
Jesus, yeah, it's a good question. So, like, back then, the way the gym was lined up, like, there was, like, Andy got his black belt shortly after I began training, Andy Ryan, and he was the second Irish black belt after John Kavanagh. So, like, there wasn't black belts all over the place, but there was guys wearing purple belts, and you would have assumed that, they would have been seen as, like, Jesus, these lads are high level, you know what I mean? But there was a lot of guys that were training there in the gym that were blue belts and purple belts, and we were going in there as new blood white belts. There wasn't the beginner-friendly approach to jiu-jitsu. There was no beginner classes. It was sink or swim. Get on the mat and just try and survive for a handful of rounds. So we did that. And I don't know, just some of us just kept going. People tailed off, but there was a handful of us started there. I started with my best mate, Ray Orr. We've started training in that same club and both moved into Team Rhino then. And me and Ray are both black belts now, So
Wow.
at least we sort of had each other to bounce off and that. But it was just sink or swim for a long, long time. You were basically rolling with big people. You were rolling with advanced folks, giants, just getting murdered. And it was just, can you hold on? Can you hold on until you eventually start getting kind of good at this? And it took a while. It took a few years, There was no... Like nowadays, if you start, there's technique classes, beginner classes and whatnot. Back then, it was just jump in and go with everyone else and just try and keep your head above water for a long, long time. But I don't know, just the addictive nature of my personality, I just, I had to keep going. I had to keep going. And I enjoyed the competition aspect. I've competed all the way through. It's been a mad journey, but still going strong.
Yeah, and how does it feel when that does start to turn, when you start seeing the progress? Like, is there a great satisfaction in it? Is it just like, oh, I'm finally getting somewhere with it? And then in terms of competition, did you compete from a white belt as well?
Yeah. I competed in every belt. I don't think I ever won a competition at white belt. The first couple of years, I didn't really improve a hell of a lot. I was just game. I'd get on the mat and I'd train hard and work and whatnot. But from a technical skill viewpoint, I remember just not being fantastic, or not getting to the point where I was winning tournaments. I remember hitting a silver medal a couple of times in jiu-jitsu competitions, so I could kind of hang with guys. And I remember breaking my arm then when I was a blue belt. I was training MMA again, and I broke my arm badly. If anyone on the camera could see the little hole in my elbow there, the elbow got fully dislocated, and I had to take it back a notch. I couldn't roll for quite a while, but I could go down and learn, do drills, do the technical stuff, and I could try and figure out what kind of techniques would work for me that I could protect this arm, because it was really sore and weak for a long, long time. So I learned. I took a step back intensity-wise, and I developed my game. And a few months after coming back from that injury, I remember winning my first gold medal in a tournament, and then I won another and another. And it just kept going. Then it got to a point then when I was starting to win pretty much almost everything I was going into, and then you find yourself wearing a purple belt, and then after a couple of years there, you're wearing it trickles forward from there. So that was probably the aha moment, having to not focus on just being in fifth gear all the time and actually develop that side of your game. And it's not just turning up a class and listening and learning, it's going off and seeking out, like finding people who are good at certain things and getting them to show you, what works in this position, what works in that position. So taking a step back and developing the other aspect of your game, which I still do now. Like I work with Collie Mahan in the striking department these days up in Dublin Combat Academy, and it's not just going down there and getting my ass handed to me for a workout. It's going down there and trying to develop skills that I just don't fucking have, and he's able to walk me back a couple of steps of intensity, and let's just walk through this technique, and we'll do it and do it and do it and repeat it until it starts to feel natural, and then we'll add a little bit to it, So it's patience and skill development, and that's that white belt mentality is something that you got to keep going forward. You can't just think that you're I'm good enough now and that's it. You've got to always be trying to learn. If you want to make improvements as you go forward, you have to have that white belt mentality.
Yeah, because you see, you're a black belt, and you've probably seen, and we've all seen, the evolution in MMA and jiu-jitsu over the past couple of years. Like, how much has it evolved? We've seen, obviously, in MMA between safety, tech, everyone's rounded now. Like, when you look back at when you started to where jiu-jitsu and MMA is now, like, how much has it changed in your opinion? Like, can you believe we're this far ahead right now? Or did you ever think it was going to be this good?
Yeah, it's the skill levels now. Like, I mean, I'm cage side for most of the amateur fights that take place in this country now, and Jesus Christ, some of the skill level, like you were there the other week when we saw Damien McGuigan knock out his opponent with that spinning kick, and just the level of talent. And these guys they're coming into the amateur scene now at a young age, and they've had X amount of cadet fights, X amount of novice fights. They're coming in there as well-rounded fighters, and they're learning from, like when I kicked off, as I said, there wasn't too many black belts in the country. nowadays you walk into our gym, we've 24 black belts in our gym. You know what I mean? So these guys that are stepping into the cages are learning from people who've been down that path. They're, success leaves clues, and they're learning from people that have been there, done that, worn the t-shirt. So you can see it. That's obviously going to trickle down, and it's going to increase the standard going forward. In 10 years' time, the skill level of the amateurs then is going to dwarf what we're looking at now.
Which is crazy to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is crazy to see. I didn't realise the jiu-jitsu scene is absolutely massive over here. I only realised recently, because I talked to Andy Chapman a lot, and it was kind of between him and you and a couple of other people, I realised, the scene is now, there seems to be competitions for jiu-jitsu every second or third weekend. You had the Grapple Queens there recently, which I think is a fantastic concept. Did you watch it yourself? Do you go to many competitions yourself and compete now with, obviously, you're doing commentating most weekends? Yeah,
I'm flat to the mat this year, so I got my black belt just before Christmas. It was just before Christmas. And I did my first black belt competition in February. And it was great to actually get on the mats for the first time wearing a black belt in competition. It was brilliant because I've competed and won tournaments at pretty much every belt. I didn't win out in a white belt, but I won blue, purple, brown, and it was great to step on the mats and compete against black belts. And then since then, I got injured 3 days after that, and I'm still dealing with a little niggling injury, which is sort of holding me back from training hard. I can train on the mat, but I can't train to a level where I'd be at competition intensity to be ready to get in with black belts. But again, I'm working nearly most weekends in a month anyway, and between that and having 2 little babies, it's kind of put the competition in jiu-jitsu is sort of at the back of my mindset. But the scene, it's right what you're saying, the scene is on fire at the moment. I look at the big competitions that are on now, and I've commentated on a couple of them this year and stuff, and you go down to them and they're in massive big arenas and big crowds at them and huge divisions stacked full of competitors. I compare that to the ones I was going to when I was a white belt or a blue belt. It's night and day, you know what I mean? The growth has been brilliant, and that's just that's down to the coaches, really, the people that have been out there at the coalface just hammering away over the years and trying to impart their knowledge and build their schools and that. And the skill level, phenomenal, We've got guys competing. We've got world champions in jiu-jitsu from this country. We've got guys competing on big shows like the ADCCs. We have Polaris, guys like that. So, it's just growing and growing along with the MMA, So it's great to see.
Yeah, it's good. We had John Fleming for Mighty Mouse. Kieran McFadden and Catherine McFadden recently came back with silver and gold from Vegas. It's on fire. And like I said, the shows are every week. Talk to us about your black belt. Obviously, from starting from the white belt and going through and winning all those competitions, when you actually received your black belt, did you know it was coming at the time, or did you think it was going to be a little bit longer? And what was your emotions when you were getting it from Andy Ryan, the second person to have a black belt in Ireland?
Yeah, I knew I was getting my black belt because it was time, we do a grading end of year, so December, right before Christmas, we do a grading every year, and I know the year before that I was being looked at for my black belt, and I didn't get it on the day, and I was like, right, I don't mind. I'm doing it long enough in that I was like, right, it'll happen when it happens. Don't be too pissed off. So I knew I had a good year of training, and I had done well in competition, and I'd even entered a competition at black belt a couple of weeks before the grading because there was no brown belts in it. It was a small competition, so I got a match at black belt against a heavier opponent and came out with a win. So it was just I'm rolling with black belts non-stop all the time. So I just knew from how I was moving around, brown belt with 4 stripes and wearing a brown belt 4 years, able to hang with most people that I train with. And I knew it was right, it's time now. So, but even still, it was very emotional because I'm getting promoted to black belt alongside Miles Price, got his black belt at the same time as me. Bill McCann, who's training God knows how long, he's our wrestling coach and, a lifelong martial artist. It was a proud moment for me to get a black belt. Stevie Carr was one of the Europeans, a really good friend of mine since we were white belts. It was a proud moment to just get promoted alongside all of those guys. And to get all my belts from Andy, because that place has been really good to me over the years. It's always there as a second home, so that was a really proud moment, I was pretty fucking emotional because what we do is at your belt grading, you basically get Shark Tanked. You get the Iron Man treatment. So I've had this for pretty much most of the belt promotions, and it's quite rough It's like we have lots of affiliate schools, so you'll get people from a few of the other affiliate schools are coming up, so there could be like 100 people on the mat, and it's like Andy will pick out, after we've done a bit of a class, a bit of a training session, a warm-up, whatever, Andy will go, right, you. Guys who's looking at for belts, on the mat and stay there till you're told to get off. So you're there, and if someone taps you or you tap them, they get off, the next person runs out and gets on you straight away. And this goes on for, like, it's an indefinite amount of time. There's no looking at the clock and, right, 5 minutes left. I've done this for like an hour and a half some years. It's grim, like. So you're in survival mode, and it's basically, it's a test of your resilience and just your willpower. You know, you're out there and there's people tapping you out, like, because you're just purely exhausted. But you're still there, and then he gets off. You're still putting your hand up for the next one to come out, and it's just it's a bit of a hazing ritual. No one's expecting you to be out there killing everyone.
Yeah.
But just keep going. So we did that, but by the end of it, you're fucked. And I remember they called time on it at the end, and the relief is there that it's over. And it's right, everyone come over, sit down, chill out, find a place to sit down, and then they go off to get all the belts ready. But I remember just sitting there on my own. The room is so sweaty at that point. Even in December, the condensation is dripping off the roof, and the floor is like a swimming pool, and everyone's drenched to the bone. And it's just like, get in against the wall, sit down. I remember putting my hands in my towel. I was like, fuck, I'm crying. Better not take this towel off my face, you know. I just need a minute, because there's an overwhelming little burst of emotions, because that's the last time I'll ever have to do that, you know. And I did it for me purple belt, I did it for me blue belt, and got like rinsed and battered and choked to sleep and woken back up and just kept going and got those belts, and they're great memories. But like, this is the last time now, you know. So it was really emotional. And I'd been going through a hard year personally as well, so I was like, right, yeah, this is going to be a shining light in a tough year. And it was a really, really nice experience. And out of the 4 or 5 of us that got promoted, I think I might have been the last one. So I got to just sit there in my own little headspace and watching all the new blue belts getting promoted. So there's about a half an hour of this going on, all the new purple belts, all the new brown belts, and then this guy gets his black, and this guy. And then it was me. And it was just, it was pretty overwhelming, but I remember just the relief. But like I said, I knew it was coming, but I still really enjoyed the whole experience. And you're just surrounded by a lot of your friends and people you've been training with for years. So it was a proud moment, it's really cool.
Yeah, I can imagine it is. And the fact that it was the last time having to do something like that, because even me listening to you saying what you had to do sounds rough.
The purple belt one now, the one I got from me purple belt was pretty rough, because we'd... like I said, we're a bit fucking wild in there, and we rinse each other. Like, you have to have a thick skin. But I remember me purple belt one. I got it pretty much worse than everyone else. So basically, you're on the mat, and every time you get tapped, you put your hand up, the next one comes out. And I kind of realised that, like, everyone that's coming out to me is a brown belt or a black belt. Like, there's no white belts I'm getting a rough right here. What's going on? And I realised, I looked out the corner of my eye, and I realised all the brown belts and black belts were skipping the line to get to the front to wait till I was free. So they were rinsing me, like, and it was like an hour and a half, and I remember getting choked to sleep multiple times. Carol Roach choked me by sitting on my chest when I was already exhausted. I was like, I can't breathe. Fell asleep. Wake up, you fucker. Woke me up. Someone else came out and threw a triangle on me. It was just like, yeah, but you get through it, you know. And then at the end of that one, everyone's lined up, and Andy was dishing out all the belts. And then nothing from me. And he goes, right, lads, we're all going home. I'll see you on Monday. And everyone starts to walk away, and Andy just pulls him for purple belt. Look at Browner's face. And I'm just sitting there about to cry. Like. So, yeah, it's great memories, you know. But thankfully, don't have to do it again.
Thankfully.
Jesus Christ.
Throughout that time, other than obviously getting the black belt, is there any moments that stand out to you, any competitions, or is there anything that really stands out to you throughout your time through Jiu-Jitsu? Like, there's loads of great memories of competitions. Like, you know, there was a few where, like, you pull out a submission out of the bag when you're getting absolutely butchered, and then you strangle someone, or you catch an armbar. And I caught one with like less than a tenth of a second left on the clock once to win the gold medal. Like, he got a sweep on me right near the end. I was like, fuck. I lashed on an armbar and he screamed, and they stopped the clock. It was like 0.8 of a second or something stupid left on the clock. So there's great memories like that, like just competition wise. But I think the best ones are like just some of the experience you've had, like being away somewhere with some of the team competing, or, you know, days we've had where loads of us have actually won medals or done really well, and just as a group, I think that stands out to me more. There's more value in that, you know. It's less personal and more just
just good life experience, and you know, it's been a brilliant journey. And the day I got the black belt and you have to make a speech, I kind of fumbled through my speech a little bit, and what I was trying to say was, this is a place where you'll just make great connections, and it'll always be here when shit's going well, and when shit's not going so well, you always have a place you can come in and you'll be welcomed and people will be happy to see you. And I think that's the most important thing about a journey like that. It's not like MMA where it's prize fighting and you're trying to provide for your family. You're there just to learn and get better and grow, but you're also there to enjoy yourself, you know. And I think that's what stands out to me most, you know, just all the fun we've had over the years and some of those stories, like, just crazy, you know. Yeah, rather more so than, you know, any individual match or competition or accolade that I've won. Just some brilliant experience built up along the way.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a fantastic journey, and like you said, loads of memories with good people, and you've named a couple who they've been your friends since white belt, so obviously there's been people with you along that journey. But obviously people know you, a lot more people would know you through MMA, through your voice, your MC and you commentate. Talk to us about how that, because that kind of came about all of a sudden. Obviously Noel O'Keefe was stepping away. Him and Phil were quite good as a duo. At the time I didn't know who was going to replace him, and then all of a sudden you can talk to us about your first show, how it came about. Were you always interested in doing the commentating? Was that something you aspired to do, or just tell us how it kind of started out for you? Yeah,
so it's less than a year and a half now. I think it is anyway. I think it's just under a year and a half. The first one I did was I commentated on Chaos Grappling. Andy Chapman runs it, and he's a good pal of mine, and he was trying to get me to match to compete on the card and couldn't get me matched. So I said, look, I'll come up and I'll commentate on the live stream, because I was going up there with a couple of people from my team that I had helped him get matches for, and I was like, I'm going to come up anyway, so you can stick a headset on me and I'll commentate on Grant. And I did that and really, really enjoyed it. And like, I think I did quite well at it. I remember Sean Quirk, who runs the live streams, afterwards he said, Jesus, that was great, how long are you doing this? And I was like 3 hours. You know, and he was, fuck, I thought you'd been doing that for years. You were so good at it, you were well able to do it. And afterwards, I remember just thinking, Jesus, I really enjoyed that. I'd love to do more of that. But there's already people doing those jobs on the Irish MMA scene. I'd love to work in MMA, because I prefer to watch MMA than watch Jiu-Jitsu. So I was thinking I'd love to do it. And as luck would have it, I think the following week, Noel basically announced he was stepping away. So, of course, I had been working as a judge and a ref. I knew everyone in the sort of cage side group. I knew a lot of the promoters anyway. So I was like, Jesus, that's wide open now. That's an opportunity. So I just sent out some texts to some of the promoters, offered me services for that job going forward. They were happy enough to go with it, and here we are. I did the first few and I did okay with those, and then more and more shows now have reached out, and just it's at the point now where I'm on most of the shows in the country, which is that's a really nice feeling, in that people trust me to do that job, because it's great experience. I get to work alongside some brilliant people, like you mentioned, Phil. There we did quite a lot of shows together last year, and we worked together recently on Akuma. We're doing Cage Legacy together next month. I've learned so much from working alongside him. He's just so good, so slick, so professional. And then, you know, the likes of Andrew McGahan. I've known Andrew since we were white belts or blue belts in jiu-jitsu, and we have some fun when we do that here up in Newry. I'm really looking forward to that now in a couple of weeks. We really click on the commentary. It's a bit more lighthearted when the two of us are on together. We pull the piss out of each other a bit, but it's great fun. Yeah, I just absolutely love the whole experience, and I get to work with guys like you, of course, at the show. I always look forward to getting up to the show, because you know, all the cuts team, the medics, the officials, yourself, and other people. It's always the same core group at every show. So it's always like, when the show is coming up, I'm like, right, I can't wait till Sunday, or I can't wait till Saturday evening. It's going to be cool. It's going to be great fun, you know. And it's not often you get to say that about work, you know. Yeah,
because like that, when you go up, you've got Jess, you've got like Paddy or whoever may be the
and
medics.
All the fighters and coaches, everyone's happy to see you.
Yeah.
I've been happy. The thing that I've been very happy with is the response that I've had from fighters doing my job. I don't get fighters texting me. Touch wood, it hasn't happened yet. I don't get fighters texting me aggrieved with anything I've said or pissed off. Like, I had a fighter reach out to me last week that I gave some constructive criticism of his performance on the live stream at a recent show, Virtus I think it was, and he reached out to me and thanked me for it and said, look, yeah, you're right about this, and thanks for the constructive criticism. This is something I need to work on going forward. that was class for me.
Yeah.
Now that was really nice for me to hear that, because I don't try to sugarcoat things. I try to call things down the middle, and I try not to. If someone's not performing well, you don't need to be just going in on them either. Do you know what I mean? You need to call things down the middle. If someone's doing things right, you've just got to call the action as you see it. And fighters reach out to me all the time to chat to me about stuff that I might have said on commentary, good and bad, and some ask my opinion on stuff, which and that just, it's nice for me. It's nice that fighters trust my opinion and they trust my words and stuff. So it's the one thing I've really enjoyed about the whole process. You get to know a lot of these fighters. You get to make connections with them as well, coaches, but fighters in particular. And it's nice to be involved in a little way on their journey. Some of them going, like we're seeing, like Shauna there in the UFC now, and I commentated on 3 of her first 4 pro fights, and it's like, right, well, I feel like it was just sort of one tiny particle of that early stage of that journey. I was right there, and I got a good view of the whole show. Let's see where she goes next, So it's interesting that a lot of the fighters that are on the scene now, a lot of them could go on to huge things, and it's nice to just get to know the fighters like that and enjoy the journey,
Yeah, like you said, and from what I do, obviously it's different, but like when I look at the likes of Solomon Simon now, like Cage Warriors, and there's like the likes of Max Lally and Gary Rooney, like I would have been heavily interviewing them and stuff 2 years ago, or trying to get them on, and now
pro
you see
debuts
them
over the next couple of weeks for the guys.
That's a massive show for Cage Legacy to get those 2 pro debuts. It's massive. Obviously, unfortunately, Virtus, it fell out for them, but obviously Cage Legacy. And is Shauna, I think she's commentating on Cage Legacy as well.
She's commentating with me and Phil, I believe, so that's going to be cool, because Shauna has won multiple titles there, like 3 belts, an amateur belt and 2 different pro belts in the promotion. So that's going to be fun. Get on like a house on fire with Shauna as well. I've trained a good bit with Shauna, so really going to enjoy that one. It's going to be a cool experience. They do great things for the scene, and it's great to see, like you said, Gary and Max on the same show making pro debuts. I know both those lads. I know their dads well. They're guys that are really open and friendly, and always have been over the years through the scene. You know them well from interviewing them. It's going to be a good night for that next stage of their careers. If they both get in there and they both get those victories, Jesus, the place will be up the flats will be bouncing off the walls in the place. And Max always brings a crowd with him too. I enjoy just being in the cage and introducing them, and when you're in the cage you get to feel that energy in the room on those nights. That venue in Tal is brilliant. Like I remember commentating on Shauna's fights in there before. Was it with Kerry Isom? And it's a class venue for that. Like the atmosphere would be rocking in there. So it's it's great to be in and around the whole journey. Some of them can go all the way to the top, and you're building great memories there.
Yeah, it is. There's been like that one that you just talked about. I think Jordan O'Neill and Troy Gibson.
Same show,
And that was unreal. That was probably one of the best amateur fights I'd seen up until that stage, when there was Oisin Fox and Taylor Quinn was another one. That recent one with Brian Manning and Darrell Ward was another fantastic fight. Is there any fights, or like throughout what you've been doing, like I said, it's been about a year and a half or so, is there any like knockout that stands out to you, or is there any kind of fights that stand out to you that you watched and you just went, oh my God?
Yeah. The one that jumps off the page at me is Jamie Abbott-Bissett and Gary Rooney in Ashbourne. Were you at that one?
Yes. Jamie, I think, done the best from Jamie was doing damage from the bottom. And I think Gary Rooney said that was his favourite fight as well when I interviewed him.
It was just a high-level fight. Both of them, I know both of them. Like, obviously, I trained with Jamie since he started. He's been in our place. And I've known Gary a long time. Like, I would have rolled with Gary a few times when he was just a teenager. And, like I said, he's a friendly guy. And I was bumping into him at open mats, jiu-jitsu open mats and stuff. And we train now and again. He's been down at Rhino training with us. So we all know each other. And there was no bullshit. The two of them, like, they know each other. They're good friends. And they're like, let's get after this. And this is going to be a great memory for both of us to build for our career going forward, which is testament to the two of them as martial artists. But the atmosphere was crazy. You had the two opposing crowds on either side of the cage. It was electric in there. And the level of the fight, it was just unbelievable. It was a very close fight. I remember afterwards talking with one of the media members, and we were like, I thought Jamie might have nicked that on the scorecards, but Gary got think there was a couple of 30-27s and then a 29-28, but all of the rounds bar one from memory were very, very, very close. But just a brilliant fight. You know, and it was a real test for both guys, and they both came through it. Just that Kimura escape was just, it was one of the craziest things I've ever seen in MMA, you know.
Yeah, because I'd be sitting as close as you'd be sitting, and I was sitting kind of looking directly at it, and I was like, oh, this is over. This is over. And it wasn't, I think I actually spoke, it was with Gary. There's very few fights that there is electricity in the air. That was one of them. And I think I think there's a craziness about Cage Legacy, and I think it comes from Decky. I think it seeps through his skin into the show. There's always something mental that happens, and we've got Your coming up as well, which is another one of my favourite shows. There's big fights on that. But one of the things as well you went viral for was the Trico Plata.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that? Because I remember, I don't think I was at that show. That was the December show last year.
Yeah, in the Big Top,
Right? And you came out, and just off, like, it was just like that. That's not a thing that many people would know. And then that went viral. It went on Espinosa's Corner, and loads of people who tweeted it. When you do something like that and you see your commentary going viral, like, how does you sitting there going, fucking hell?
That was just like, I was nearly embarrassed. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, someone said, because I have Twitter, but I don't really use it. But someone kind of tagged me, and I was like, I went on and I looked, and there was just threads and threads about the whole thing, like people commenting and talking about, and literally highlighting me and say, you know, fair play to the commentator. Like, that was unreal. I was like, Jesus Christ, like, this is crazy, you know. But I think it shows the value in having someone on the mic who knows what they're talking about, knows what they're doing. I think that's important, you know. The Tarico Plata is something you may never see in MMA again, you know. There was one, myself and McGahan were commentating on EUR a couple of months previous, and I think it might have been Mark Cartmill tried it on my teammate Paddy Simons, didn't get the finish, but converted it into an armbar. So when the Tarico Plata happened, I was like, oh, we only have one of these in Irish MMA before, and I was about to say, but he didn't finish it. But then, he absolutely finished it. But Jake Nye obviously got the submission, and, you know, Jake is just a really exciting fighter. His win recently on Virtus was brilliant, you know. But, yeah, you just don't see off the road kind of submissions like that in MMA. I had learned that submission a year or two previous, but a few months beforehand, I remember just around the corner from here, Paddy Houlihan's gym is 5 minutes from here, and I used to pop into the odd Monday night session after I'd finished working in here. I'd be sprint around the corner, and I remember popping in there, and on that particular night there was very few of them in. There was only a small little crew, and one of the guys that teaches a bit there, it might have been Sam, or I think it was Sam Delaney, was going through the Tarico Plata because he had learned it at a Tariq Hopstock seminar over in, I think, Jungle. So he was going through it with the class, and just inside the door, Paddy and Shauna were sitting in the near corner as I come in the door, and they were parted up and they were going through it. He said, just jump in with the two of us. So the three of us basically spent the class just going over the Tarico Plata and different variations of it, different ways of finishing it. So it was really cool just to break down the technique with, you know, two really good martial artists. That was a good experience. Anyway, fast forward a couple of months later, and there's Jake Nye swims onto it. I was like, there we are, I know exactly what we're doing, you know. So the value of being on the mats consistently and actually doing the work, like I would do the same. I'm on the mats week in, week out with Collie Mahan. So when I'm watching striking exchanges, I'm watching their footwork. It's not like it's something I used to do years ago, which is initially when I started commentating, striking was something that I used to do years ago and I wasn't doing anymore. And after the first couple of shows, I was like, I need to be on the mats moving around with people. I feel like I need to, for whatever way my brain works, I need to be able to, I need to have this stuff fresh. I need to know how it feels, you know, how your balance feels when you switch to this position. And so I find there's value in that, you know, and it just showed in that Jake Nye submission, you know. Yeah,
it did, because it was straight away off the cuff. Like, not off the cuff, it was straight away, you knew what you're talking about. I was like, what the F is Tarico Plata?
Actually, funny story, I jumped in the cage, and you literally have seconds before you have to announce it. You're on the mic talking with Phil Campbell about what's going on, and then while Phil is just rounding up the commentary for that fight, I'm getting the headset off and I'm running in, grabbing the mic, running in to announce it. So you don't get time to think here. So I ran in, and when it's a unique submission, I would always confirm with the fighter Like if it's a choke, was that a ninja choke, or I'll always grab the fighter and just say, what am I announcing that as? I'll always do that just to confirm with them. So Pat Sheridan, who of course was Jake's coach at the time, I just grabbed him on the way by and I said, that's a three plata, yeah? Just to be sure, like, because you don't get time to process in your own head, sit back and just be
and you might always, I always think, did I see that correctly?
Yeah, I don't want to fuck it up. So that's a tariqa plata. And he says, no, that was a burrata plata. And I kind of have a half an understanding of what a burrata plata is, but not really. It's like a different variation of it. And I was like, are you sure? And he said, yeah, cool. So I announced it as a burrata plata on the mic. Now, thankfully, it's a loud crowd. They probably barely fucking heard it. But then he texted me back later when he actually saw the clip back, because he had been sitting on the other side of Jake when the submission happened. Yeah. So he just had a different idea of it in his head. He watched it back and he goes, shit, that was a tariqa plata. It's like, it's grand. I don't think anyone was listening. I think it got drowned out by the crowd. We were all right with that one,
Yeah, you got it on the commentary, and that was the main thing. And Jake is, like you said, he's in a year and a half or a year and a bit, he's like 11-2, and he just looks
insane.
So clean. And like, that's what we were talking about, the levels when you look at what's coming through now. Damien McGuigan, Shea Clean, Owen Zolfer was another fantastic.
So these are just kids, like.
They're all only 18 years of age. They're only after going in. They're only starting their amateur journey.
And they're building up like you've seen guys go pro with not many more amateur fights than that. You've seen guys go pro with less amateur fights than that. Guys that they've had like 8-10 fights and then they're off to the pro ranks. So these guys don't need to be in a rush. They can have 5 or 6 more. And what level are they going to be at then?
Yeah.
When they make that transition, so we may have a great new wave. Like, there's a good wave of Irish MMA fighters now. A good handful now found themselves in the UFC. In 5 years' time, there could be a wave of those guys. Some of those guys might make it to that level, and they could be knocking on the door of the UFC. So it's really exciting times for the sport,
Yeah, it is very exciting, and obviously there's been a lot of debuts in the UFC. The results haven't gone the way of the Irish fighters, but like that, there's still so much potential in them. And I think Paul Hughes should be added fairly soon as well. How he's not there, I think even Caelan Loughran said Paul Hughes should have been signed before I was signed.
Everyone is bleating it from the rooftops. Like, what is he, 9-1 or something like that? And like, you watch any of the fights, he's fought the best of the best in Cage Warriors. He hasn't been out there fighting bums. He's been fighting Morgan Charrier and Vucenic and people like that, guys at the peak of the featherweight division, So what more does he need to do? If they're calling for more finishes, I mean, it's not easy to finish guys like that. Guys that are, already UFC level. We saw Morgan Charrier go in there and absolutely decimate his opponent the other week in Paris. So I think Hughes will get signed. I think it's just, there's obviously something else at play there. I don't know whether there's something sticking point in contract negotiations. I don't know. I don't have any insight on it. But I can't imagine, or maybe they're just waiting until the right opportunity, becomes available. They're not going to be arsed flying him all the way to Australia when they've probably got other featherweights that are closer to there that they can fit into that slot. They're probably waiting for we'll wait till the right opponent is ready on a European-based show and we'll pop him in there. He may just have to wait till early next year and a UFC Dublin card comes up. Or you might see him back in the yellow gloves. Yeah, you might see him taking on someone in the Cage Warriors cage, but it's hard to know. But he's clearly good enough for the UFC.
Yeah, I think so. And like that, he actually, I myself don't use Twitter that much. I have to start using it more because I think it's one of the sewers of social media. If we're being totally honest, I think it can be a great place for MMA news, but it can be a horrible place for the likes of trolls. But I think he put up something. George Hardwick had made a comment and he said, "Oh, I've defended my belt, not like some others." Paul Hughes. And then I think Paul Hughes said, Cage Warriors Dublin, let's do it.
Right.
So a lot of people are looking, whether that was just said.
Jesus, if that got added onto the card, that show would be unreal, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so.
It's an interesting one, but that's a tough fight. Like, that's up a weight class as well, wouldn't it be? So, like, if Hughes was to take that and let's say he loses, and what does that do then for his position going forward? Does he have to win 2 or 3 more to get to the UFC? I mean, that's another year or 2 down the line, and I don't know. But what if he wins? Do you know what I mean?
You should be straight in then.
Yeah. It's that's throwing all the chips on the table, But Hughes is brilliant. Like, there's no 2 ways about it. Like, I think it's looking likely the UFC are coming back to Dublin. How they could have a card in Dublin and not have Paul Hughes involved some way, I don't know. Silly, but we've a serious bunch of fighters ready ready to take to the stage if we do get that show. It looks likely that we're going to get it in the early half of next year, doesn't it?
It's looking like it, and like that. If that comes over, there is huge opportunities for some of the local fighters that are fighting on Cage Warriors and stuff that might be able to get on that card as well. Like you said, how many people have we got in Cage Warriors? How many people, like the 6 in the UFC now, is probably the most there's ever been at one time of Irish fighters, I'd presume. And you add Paul Hughes, that's 7. I just think going forward, it's just looking really, like for such a tiny island, like the amount of talent that's actually coming out of it is unreal. And one of the things I've liked that you've started doing now is the breakdowns, looking either previews or breakdowns after fights. What made you kind of get into that as well? Because it was something I'd like to do, but because I've never trained, not a lot of people be like, well, your opinion doesn't matter, but because you've trained, you know the nooks and crannies, you know the ins and outs. What made you decide to do that? Because I actually really enjoyed them, and so do a lot of other people.
Yeah, I like making them. So I have like a weird sort of neurodivergent ADHD kind of brain where I get fixated on something and I just want to fucking do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I wanted to learn how to. I was like watching little videos and stuff, and I wonder how that was edited. So I wanted to learn how to actually edit videos properly.
Yeah.
So I started making 1 or 2. As well, for my job as a commentator, it's good practice for me. It makes me watch fights mindfully rather than passively. So I'll watch a fight rather than just sit there lying on my sofa half watching it and daydreaming about something else, because that's what my brain does. My brain drifts off. It makes me sit down and watch it and watch the patterns and the setups, and it helps me just learn a little bit about how certain fighters move and how good they actually are, you know, what they're doing to create traps for their opponents and whatnot. It's great practice for me on camera. And also, it's fun editing videos. I like just being a little bit on the creative side, so I get to sort of scratch a couple of itches there. It's a good portfolio of work as well, so promoters and stuff, you know, if they're looking for examples of me working on camera to see, am I actually any good at this? Can I speak coherently about a fight, and do I know what I'm talking about? Well, there's a bit of proof, you know. So, do it for a multitude of reasons, but I really enjoy doing it. Like, I did the Ian Gary one there a couple of weeks ago over the calf kick, so I'd watch that fight, and then that's sort of just bouncing around in my brain for a couple of days. Like if I make this video, that'll get rid of that little thing that's annoying me in the back of my head. You know, I get a lot of background noise. It's a lot of fun, and I got a lot of good feedback off it as well. You know, some of the fighters they shared the videos too, and that's pretty cool. And continue to do those when I have the time. I have plenty of them to do now over the next few weeks, and it's a nice way of, as I said, just practicing being on camera and breaking down fights intelligently and coherently and trying to just improve your own. You don't just turn up at work and be good at something. You have to practice. You know, it's like anything. Like, and that's that white belt mentality that I got through jiu-jitsu. You're not just going to turn up and smash everyone on the mat if you're not relentlessly practicing. So I'm doing that for me sort of to help my commentary game and to help my just fight analysis game, and it helps me, as I said, learn a lot of the patterns that fighters are using, and really enjoy the whole process, you know. Yeah,
I like them. It gives you different facets and different ways to create content, and like I said, it's good for a portfolio. When you kind of went in and you started doing commentary, because you kind of exploded like that, you're on nearly every show, and you've worked alongside Phil, and you see he works with the likes of Brave and Hexagon and stuff as well, and you're associated with Cage Warriors and stuff now. Like, are you looking at this is going to be your career? Like, did you ever think this was going to be a career path when you done that first one at Chaos?
Not really, no. It was like, Jesus, I'd like to do that. That'll be a nice thing to do, a nice hobby or something. And now it's like, people are actually paying me money to do it more often than not now. So it's like, it's opened up some great opportunities, and you just don't know where it's going to go. Or the one thing I've learned about it over the last couple of years is you don't know what opportunity is going to pop up in front of you. So put yourself in a position where you're going to be ready to capitalise on that, because that's what happened with the commentary thing. I was in a position at the time the opportunity came up. I was like, right, I'm almost a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I've been training for years. I've competed in the striking arts as well. I've been working cage side as an official, so I know the scoring criteria in and out. I can speak well on camera, and I was looking at it going, right, I tick all the boxes to do that job quite well. So I've put myself, not consciously, but through life experience, I've actually built up the right skill set to do that job. So I'm in a position now to take that opportunity that's after popping up. So you just don't know what's going to pop up over the next couple of years. If I'm still doing the same thing in the next couple of years, I'll still be happy because I love what I'm doing at the moment. But maybe some massive opportunity might pop up out of there. You never know. It's been brilliant so far. The work with Cage Warriors has been awesome, and I've got to see how a big promotion like that is run, see firsthand, and work alongside. I mean, the people that work there, the production guys, I'm getting to see how the guys like Adam Sparrow and George and their team, the guys behind the cameras, Christian is their content creator, Dion, their social media guy. I get to see how all of those guys operate, and it's fascinating, you know. Like I would just be in there hanging out with these guys like they're my work pals when on fight week. So it's like you're just getting to see what they're doing, how they're operating, and then of course you're in there, and Ian's in there in the office, and you're getting to see how he pieces everything together, and it's fascinating just to be front and center. And the big experience, the big thing I love about me fight work. So anyone's watching doesn't know what I'm talking about. I managed I helped manage the backstage along with Fred Zafar, who also works for the UFC, and me and Fred basically we take a corner each, and we coordinate the fighters once they arrive at the venue. That we make sure that they're warmed up on time, they're ready to go in the holding area, and walk them out to the cage and all that stuff. So we're there as a sort of a liaison between the fighters and the promotion. They're coming to us, and if I'm there for fight week as well, I'm the contact point for all the fighters. So I'm in contact with them on the phone all through the week. If they need information, they come to me, and this is where you need to be for the weigh-ins. This is what you need to bring. This is, I need to get information about your corner team, what you're wearing, all that stuff. So it's a real privileged position because you have to know how to talk to fighters who are cutting weight. You have to be there to help them, and that's it. That's your sole task for the week. Really, is to just make their life a little bit easier. And it's great because you make good connections. You meet a lot of good guys, teams, fighters from all over Europe, from all over the world. You're troubleshooting non-stop because there's little issues pop up on fight week. It's a stressful time, and the relief on everyone's face then once the show is out of the way. The whole Cage Warriors team, you can see some of them are so exhausted they can't even talk. Like, just it's 3 or 4 days of foot to the floor, and we're just going at it and just putting out fires left, right, centre. But it's a great environment to be a part of, and like I said, the experience of seeing how it all runs from that close up is just brilliant. It's really enjoyable. I can't wait to go again. I'm in Manchester in a couple of weeks with them again, so really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and like that, I really think if the Cage Warriors Dublin, I think you should be one of the voices of it, and I wouldn't be the only one who echoes that. I know Andy Stevenson, Quilsha, Ian O'Neill as well all think that you should be on. I think your commentary work's fantastic, the way you've gone through the past year, and the experiences that you've gone, and the moments that we have, or Irish MMA fans have in our head with your voice now as well, the same as with Phil and with Noel. It'll always be there for us. So I think you've done fantastic. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today, and I can't wait to see you at the next show.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you.